All right. A very good afternoon to all of you on the weekend. So today we're going to be having a masterclass around identity and access management. The host for the event today is Mr. Bishwajeet Chakraborty. A quick update, a quick detail about him is when it comes to his experience. He has about close to 7 years of experience in the IDAM technology field. When it comes to his certifications, he's done his certifications from Oracle, CyberArk, Microsoft, and he comes with a plethora of experience in SailPoint and ForgeRock. In addition to that, he's worked on various clients and has had the experience of integrating environments with millions of user base. He's received the Best Employee, Best Mentor Spot Awards for Accenture and Infosys Leadership for Performance. And when it comes to my experience with him, I have had the privilege to also interview him at our initial inception of the company at work. And also he's been a part of our first boot camp, which is currently going on right now. It's almost at the end of it. And he's also going to be a part of our second boot camp. So without any further delay, I'd like to request Bishwajeet sir to take on the class and continue further. Sir, I'm going to stop my screen sharing because I need to admit people to the meeting as well. So I'd request you to share your screen if that's okay. Sir, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Sure, Kaushik, I can share my screen. Is it visible?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so let me get started. Okay, so first of all, very good afternoon to everyone who's joined this session. And thank you for this awesome introduction about myself. So, now, before we start, it's going to be a 1 hour of kind of must, right? So everybody, one thing you should understand that before you get into cybersecurity or get into any of the cybersecurity paradigm, you should first know what is the primary implementation of it in our daily life as well as in our career graph, right? If you do not have that implementation knowledge or interest, it's seldom chances that you will grow interest yourself within that technology. So if you guys have already walked into cybersecurity domain or specifically to identity and access management domain, that's really good. But I would consider this as like people who are trying to switch into the particular domain. So I will kind of start with the scratch by giving you a very quick and basic information about why this is required and how we are dealing on everyday life with these particular technologies, right? So, this is a digital era that everything is online, either on cloud or everything people are on social media, right? What do you mean by this digital era? So when we talk about business, whether it is education business, whether it is medical or any engineering business, whether it is IT business, banking business, you name anything, everything is online nowadays, right? Whatever we do not ask normal people, we ask Google. If we want to see any new movie, if you want to see our career program for our, we want to choose any university abroad or within country, everything we go to Google and we search the profile of those institutions or those companies, everything on the online thing. So that is what we call digital era. By sitting at our home on our smartphone or our smart device, PC or something, we search these things. So this means what? Businesses and every hierarchy have actually exposed themselves to online market, right? So when there is lots of positive things that everything is available very quickly, the cons there are also as well, right? So because everything is available on online, the people who are master in hacking or social engineering, right, the data is vulnerable to them as well, right? So I think this is no need to say further that if we have our personal or confidential details, business related details online available, we need to have certain rules and restrictions, right? So that the people who we want to see our details are able to see, and rest of the people are not even aware of that details, right? So it's not only secure or guarding them from the unwanted access, also guarding them from the people who we don't want to see our details as well, right? So that's how this in digital era, we need to have this cyber security, right? So cyber security normally comes with various paradigms, right? So we have network security. So when we actually put network level litigations, which we call litigation means separate rules, right? You must have heard about demilitarized zone. You must have heard about different routing technologies where we actually set up a separate IPs to give access. So that's called network security. We have another paradigm called, say, cryptography, where we actually encrypt the data which is being passed among different sites, right? So for example, if you are putting your username and login to sign into Google, you won't be able to see your data within the browser, right? Or any device you use, because it has been encrypted. And the encryption algorithm is only known to that server which is accepting your credential. That's called cryptography, right? There is further to it as well. Now we have another paradigm called physical security. Simple example is, if you want to get into your society or in your office, you need to provide your ID card to the security guard in order to showcase that, yes, you are authorized to get into that premises, right? So that's called physical security. We have data security, we have data classification as well as a paradigm of cybersecurity, where we classify the data, which data need to be shown to other people, which should not be, right? A classic example is like, if you go to any website, company website, you might be able to see the revenue of that particular application or that particular company in last quarter, but you might not be able to see that who are the employee of that, or what is the current project going on, or what is the deal, because those are confidential information. A very classic example again, in your Facebook also, right? Your name, your what you do, those might be visible to other people, but there is an option that you restrict, maybe your birthday, maybe your phone number, you can restrict from other people. So that's how the data classification works here, right? So these are a few paradigms. Now coming back to the paradigm which I want to talk about, or I am expertise, that is called identity and access management, right? So before get into identity and access management, which is another very important and one of the top pillar among cybersecurity, we need to understand that how it is impacting our daily life organizations, right? So as I already mentioned, that organizations are now live, right? So most of the organization, like everybody, is either trying to access some online storage or some cloud storage, right? So how they access those storage, right? First thing. Second thing, if they access the storage, what would be the security granted by the storage? Are they going to rely on the security given by the cloud storage? Cloud storage means you have Azure partner, we have Amazon cloud, we have Google cloud, Microsoft cloud, which is Azure, right? Or they are going to have their own restrictions and security in place so that they can actually safeguard their own data of their company, the confidential and most important data, right? So in order to implement all these applications related to security, right, we need identity and access management in place, along with other things as well. So now, because I say it's not only about theft of data or hacking. When cybersecurity comes into picture, everybody normally gets one idea like, okay, it is hacking. So hacking is just a general term, right? When you get into cybersecurity, you will get to know hacking is actually collaborated of many terms. Like, saying hacking and cybersecurity is something like, if somebody asks you like, where do you live? You are saying, I live in India. So it's not a perfect thing, right? You live in particular state, particular city. So similarly, hacking comes with Trojan attacks, malware, DDoS attacks. There are so many other things as well, right? So apart from hacking, we need to have a litigation of our organization, right? Suppose one organization have, say, millions of user base, right? So how they are going to manage those user base? Which users should be able to access what, right? So all these things are managed using identity and access management, right? It's not about only security, it's about data classification, it's about providing the role-based access control, which we call RBAC. Like, these people should be able to access this, and this should not be able to access this, right? So this is how we actually come into identity and access management domain. Now, this is a very basic unit for cybersecurity. Reason being, a very good example, if you want to, log into any application, you name anything, whether it is Facebook, Google, or your own company organization, if you're working, or nowadays even universities and colleges are also having their website. So if you want to log in over there, you need to have your own digital identity, the way you have your physical identity, right? Your passport, your Aadhaar card, those are your physical identity, which satisfies that you are the citizen of India, or you stays here or something like that. Similarly, you need to have your digital identity in order to satisfy your credentials into that application, right? So that's why without even getting into the application, you cannot get benefited of any of those given solutions on the application, right? So the first basic thing is you need to get into that application, and to make this process automated, secure, and easy for end user, we need to have identity and access management. So this is something about the background. Like now PII is another very good term. There will be multiple terms which we'll come to know in another few minutes in upcoming slides. The one term which I can see at the below this slide is PII, which we call personally identifiable information, right? Which is basically what are the information is exposed to the wider audience, and it's viewable to the target applications, and which are not being viewable, right? As I was giving an example, like in Facebook, you might choose not to showcase your phone number, so it's your PII, but still it is hidden PII, right? So that's how we manage these all attributes. Now, so I think I have now given you a pace, like what is identity and access management and how it has been impacting in our daily life, how it is very much important. Now, in order to give you more information on this, I'm just moving ahead to the next slide, where I have actually taken up two different slides, one for identity management, one is for access management. Those are different things. Those works together to give you ultimate security, but how they work, right? So first, in order to understand, we need to understand the base of what is identity and access management. The base of an identity access management technology is the identity. It's exactly your own identity, right? You talk about any application, again, Facebook, WhatsApp, your employer application, there you have in your identity, which we call digital identity. That's your unique. Whatever you do in your real life, physical life, that doesn't bother there. Whatever the data you provide into that particular application, right? That's your identity over there, right? To make you understand, suppose you have a medical app, like you have heard about this Docs app or Mediasis, those kind of application, right? So if you want to consult any of your doctor over there, and until unless you are placing a call onto them, they will get your medical history by giving by analyzing the details which you have provided there. That means whatever you have in your hand, that doesn't matter. Whatever you put into that application, your diseases or whatever details, based upon that, they will evaluate your disease, right? So that's how digital identity matters. So whatever there into the application, that's called your digital identity. That's a base unit, right? Now, how this identity are being managed? So very simple. Like, for example, let me take an example. When you used to go to school, back in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years back, when you used to go to school, there also you used to have your identity, right? So basically, whenever you take admission into any of the school, right, what they have done on those days might be they don't have those digital stuff. What they used to do, they used to have a register, if you remember, right? In the register, what they used to do, they used to take your name, your roll number, your class, blah, blah stuff, right? So that's your physical identity into the school. And your identity card of school usually made out of those details only, right? Your daily attendance and all based upon those roll number. That's your PII. Right, so for your school, your PII is not only your name, is your roll number as well, is your class informations as well, right? Similarly, if you come to digital applications, so here your email ID, most of the cases, your credentials used to be your email ID and a unique password. So that's how your digital identity gets used up, right? Now, you just need to know that all this identity, where our organization kept your identity, it's their own, wealth, which you call is wealth. In digital era, this data, this identity data is actually their wealth. And if that got theft, if that somebody got hacked into it, right, it's their penalty thing, right? For example, I'll just give you an example. Suppose you might have heard about in recent news as well, like Facebook or Google are paying millions to the US Senate or as a backfire from UK's and all, right? Why they are paying this much of penalties? Reason being, it has been proven and they have got convicted that they actually selling the user data. User data means our own data. So when we get into those applications, we put so many our details. That's our PII data, and which become the user base for those applications, and that is their own database, right? So now they have their own litigations and some particular what do we call rules and regulations that they are not supposed to use the data in this thing, this that, right? But if they violate those litigations, there are penalties for that. There are government regulations for that. This applicable to each and every organization. If you go to your bank, HDFC or ICICI, there also you have your own identity, right? Where you have your account number, your name, your email address, blah, blah stuff. And if your bank is not able to protect your identity, if your data got theft, right? So it's bank liability. It's not your liability. If your money had been stolen from your home, it's your responsibility. But if it got stolen from the bank is liable to pay you back, right? It's not your headache, because you have given your money to the bank in order to give that security, right? So now it's their wealth and their liability as well, right? Similarly, in digital era also, all of your data is actually an asset for the company, and that data is managed by the identity, the digital identity mapped to you. Giving you some more example, like if you talk about Google, what is your data collected by Google identity is basically your email ID, your name, age, blah, blah stuff, right? In your bank, you have your account number, your balance into the account number, your FD details, your loan account details, your address, and your some of the government IDs. Those are the PII details which your banks consist of, right? So in similar way, in any organization, in IT organization, right, these are also working with IT only. But if you talk about any typical IT organization, let's say, Accenture, Infosys, TCS and all, so they also have their employees data as digital identity, right? So they have millions of users working for them. So their identity, their salary information, their role, their project details, their birth date, all these details are with those employers, and they are liable and they are responsible for safeguarding those data because they are own assets now, right? So in order to manage the identity, we need to have certain rules and technologies, right? I'll give you one more very good example. For example, you are joining a new company, let's say ABC company. Now this ABC company is actually hiring, let's say 50,000 people in a day, which is very common, right? If you know these big MNCs, they hire in thousands, right? And they have millions of user base. How they do that? Would you think, like, one user get so for single user, what are the details? You have to put your details into their website or into the HR, right? They will take all of your details. They will put all those details into various applications, right? So every company has various applications. To give you an example, like let's say ABC and a big IT MNC, right? ABC must be having various applications. One for user data, like where user can see his name, email, blah blah stuff. The other one for salary information, where he can see his salary. Other application would be for seeing his taxation details, like what is the tax he's liable to pay. One application would be where that employee will be able to see the next project which he is working for, and so on and so forth. So to onboard one single user into all these applications is a tedious task, right? You cannot do it. If one user need to be onboarded in manual way, like you go to every application and just put the details into application one by one, I think one single person need 1 day to onboard one person. Now think about, let's say 50,000 people got onboarded into 1 day. So you think about that work, right? In order to onboard 50,000, we need 1 lakh people in backend sitting to typing the data manually into it, right? Which used to happen, let's say 10 years back or 15 years back down the line. But now we have identity management solution, right? So those solutions are automated solution. You need to set up just for once into the system. You need to integrate with all of the target application, and that's boom, you're done. So what would happen? You just need to feed the data into the application based upon the rules and regulations and all the security things in place. It will automatically, put the data into those target application. That's what we call provisioning, right? So that's a very important term in identity and access management, provisioning of user information. So they will provision the data. It's not only feeding the data, right? It's not like that, you're just noting down the data into any of the register book, not like that. They will analyze the data, whether the user informations are correct or not, based upon certain criteria. And so that criteria also very customizable based upon your client need, organization need. You can actually, modify those criteria. So using those rules and criteria, they will put the data into all the different applications. And when you say different, so there are segregations of duty as well. What do you mean by that? That means, just let's take the same example. For example, your organization will have all of your data. Means your salary information, your project information, your birthday, your salary account, everything, right? But when you talk about the target application, so when you open your taxation details, you won't be able to see your project. You normally see your tax, your maybe salary or not, right? If you open the leave details, the leave application of your organization, what are you able to see? You see what are the leaves you have taken, right? What is your role, or maybe your email ID. That's the maximum thing. You don't see your salary on the leave application. You don't see your tax details or your project details into the leave application. So to segregate the data into different applications, because maybe one of the application where it shows your employee ID, your project details, this might be public to all other employees. But if your salary details goes into that application, all of the other employees will be able to see your salary or your blood group. So those are very personal information for you, right? Those are confidential to you. So then identity management is the solution where it will actually segregate the data, and it will only flows the data where it is required. It will not flow that salary information into medical application. It will do as per requirement. So it's one time implementation, and then you just onboard 50,000 or 50 lakh users in a single day. It will be done in a span of, say, a few minutes, right? So that's how the automation works into that, right? And it is not only for on-premise application, it is also applicable for cloud applications as well. So I was just talking about people are getting into cloud. So in cloud also, all the application which you create is managed by your digital identity only, and there is an inbuilt identity manager which is taking at the back end role for performing all this stuff, right? So this is how your digital identity will be placed into any application, whether it is your organization or anything, even in your bank. So it's similarly like you've created an account in bank and your digital identity is being created, right? Moving towards the next slide where we talk about the access management, right? So that's the second part, right? So suppose your identity has been now created. Now what next, right? Your target goal was to get the benefits of that application. I'll take an example of banking application only, because everybody must have a banking, I think you all are having some bank accounts. You access the bank account weekly, kind check your balance, do transactions and all, right? So let's take an example of banking account only, or let's even a relevant example. Let's say Google Pay, right? Everybody must be using Google Pay or Paytm or Phone Pay, right? So the first step is done. You have created your account into Google Pay. You did the verifications as well, and you now have a Google Pay account which is linked to your bank account. What else? Now, how we will do? Even in the terms of creating also, you must have got some OTPs. You need to put some keys and all, right? So what is that, right? Or even when you're doing a transaction next time, like you're sending money to your family or some of your friend, you must be knowing that there are some certain things you need to do. Either you need to put credentials, your banking password, or your net banking thing, right? Email ID or key, whatever you have set off. Along to that, you have to sometimes get some OTPs as well when you're doing transactions, right? You need to put OTP, right? OTP is a classic example of multi-factor authentication. I'll come to that multi-factor authentication later, but first let's understand what is authentication. So in layman words, after you have an identity created, in order to access that secure application, access management comes into picture, right? Access management is a terminology which will validate yourself. Are you the guy who are you claims to be? Are you the person who are you claims to be? It's similarly as whatever the security guard at your apartment gate, whatever they do is called access management, right? They verify your identity, whether you are the guy, right? Even if they don't ask for your some details, they may know you, right? So for knowing that thing, that is called federation. I'll just correlate it a little bit later, but that's also access management, where you are validating yourself against a validator in order to get access to anything inside anything, right? So that's called access management, right? Now in every application, right, you name it anything, without access management they cannot work. Now how they work? So there are two segregation of application, one called public application, one called private, or I would say protected application. What are the public application? It's upon you. Suppose google.com or youtube.com, those are public applications. That means if they have internet access, they can just browse it, right? You don't have to log into anything over there. Now let's another example. Suppose you want to see your Gmail, right? You want to see the emails. Are you able to see just hitting the google.com? No, you need to get into the Gmail application of Google, and in order to do that, you have to have an account created. That means identity management. In second thing, in order to access your Gmail, you need to provide your credentials. That's called access management, where Google will actually validate whether you are the guy who is owner of this particular Gmail account, right? So that's called access management, right? So before authenticating yourself, before proving that yes, you are the guy who you claims to be, you cannot access that application because that's a protected application. Even in YouTube also, if you want to see some explicit content, let's say some riot contents, right? So those kind of riots, some violent content, you cannot see if you do not log into YouTube or Google account, right? Because that's kind of age restricted, right? So in order to access those, you have to verify that no, I have an account, and even if your account is more than 18 years of age or some age restriction, then only you will be able to view those YouTube, right? I'm giving you this example. These are very basic example of access management, but when it comes to organization, it becomes much more complex, because in every organization they have numerous and many number of this access control in place, right? If you get into any or even I'll give you a mall itself. If you go to any nowadays high-tech mall, you see people, like normal people, when you get inside the mall, you might go into many of the outlet, but when there are some service lifts are there are some server room, or if you see some room where kitchen are being done, you cannot enter those rooms, right? Those are for specific people who are working and authorized into those places, right? So this is how role is being managed, right? If IT company, you might be knowing that in order to get into your building itself, you have to swipe your card. Then in order to get into your secure bay, you have to swipe it again, right? So the secure bay, anybody cannot access. The people who are working to that project will be able to access that. So all this access management is being done. Your digital identity are being given some specific role in place of identity management, right? And in access management, they are getting validated by access management solution, right? And they will only allow you inside the application or inside that area when you will be successfully authenticated, right? Now, there are two things: authentication and authorization. Those are two very important things. Authentication means, you are validating yourself who you claims to be. Let's take example of YouTube video only. So, which is age restricted video. Now, in order to see that, you have to first log into your Gmail account or Google account. Once you log in, and in your account, if your age shows at less than 18 years, even after having a valid account, you won't be able to see that video. Why? Because you have done the successful authentication. You are supposed to be watching that video, right? But not. Because after even authentication, there are authorization in place. So that means, okay, you are a valid user of that account. You are a valid identity holder into our application. But in order to access that particular application, or in order to access that particular video, you need to pass some certain criteria. Let's say here your age, and if your age doesn't match that criteria, you cannot access that, right? Similarly, like if you are a banking banking user, if you go into hdfc.com, what you will be able to see? You will see your own account, but would you be able to see accounts for other users? No, because you don't have that access. Those are having access on admin users, right? So the people who are banker, like who are sitting into the bank, they have access to all the accounts. They can view account for you, your friend, anybody in the bank, right? So they have given more access. So that's called authorization. It's not only having access, you have to have specific access for specific application. That's called authorization. Coming back to the two major things, one is multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. To give you a very layman words, you are using MFA or multi-factor authentication or the single sign-on on your daily basis, right? How do you are using daily basis? For example, now you open your google.com, you are not logged into it. You cannot access your Gmail, YouTube, whatever it is. But suppose you logged into a Gmail account, right? Now, after that, once you try to access any of the Google account, let's say your Gmail, let's say your Google Doc, your Google Pics, your calendar, your YouTube, everywhere you will see in the same browser that your ID is being there. You don't have to log in again, engineer, to make the user experience very smooth, right? So for example, once you authenticated and authorized yourself that yes, I am a valid identity, right? You don't have to authenticate yourself again and again for a certain period of time, right? For similar applications, right? So that means you're logged in into one Gmail application or one Google application, and you are able to access all other Google applications. That's called single sign-on. You are signing in for once and accessing using all the application using a single signing in. That's called single sign-on. But on the same hand, if you want to access this Facebook application on the same browser, you need to sign in again with the Facebook credential, because that's a different domain application. That's not comes under Google, right? So that's how single sign-on works upon. Coming to the multi-factor authentication, okay. OTP is a very well-known term to all of you guys, right? So everybody, you know, when you do some transaction to Google Pay or some banking, you get an OTP. Even, you know, if you want to book some cab or something or register into those apps, Ola, Uber, there's also, they ask for OTP, right? So that's a second level of authentication, right? So apart from OTP, we have so many other ways of authenticating yourself as well, right? For example, when you get a new phone, let's say Android 4, you have to, you know, in order to download any application from Google Pay, you need to first do your validation of your account. So when you do the validation, it's not only takes the data of your credential, it takes your location, it takes your MAC or IP address of your phone, right? All these details are being mapped, right? So those are called multi-factor authentication. And that is the reason when you try to log into your Gmail account to any other, say, a friend's laptop or some other city, you will get a notification that is it a security threat? Is it you or somebody else is trying to access your application? How Google gets to know that? Because you have already given the correct credential, right? Correct username and password. I mean, Gmail account ID and password. But how they get to know? Because they are doing the multi-factor authentication. In their database, Google is validating that, okay, this user has accessed our application from this IP address, which belongs to this location. Let's say Bangalore location of Karnataka. Within 1 hour of timestamp, if he is accessing from another IP, which belongs to, let's say, Kolkata or say Pune, what would happen, right? So Google will find a threat. It might be not you. If you satisfy, yes, it is me only. I have traveled, or I have, I have another, I am using VIP, or maybe I have shared my credential to my brother to do some certain application, then it is fine. If not, you will get a notification that this might be a threat attack, that might be a hacker attack, and Google will block your account right away, right? So those are the actual, multi-factor authentication which is in place in order to secure your identity. A very classic example of doing a transaction on bank as well. Suppose you have transacted more than, say, 30,000 from your credit card. You will either get an OTP call, or either you will get a call from a banker directly asking you whether it is you who have done the transaction or somebody been theft, or your identity might be compromised. But before even going into the investigation, you have to stop that particular amount to be debited from your account, right? Because that's not you who have done the transaction. So they will block the transaction. They will revert back the transaction. This is happening because of the multi-factor authentication only, right? Because if you have a multi-factor authentication, even in your phone also, so many people use fingerprint, right, to unlock your phone. Face recognition to unlock your phone. What are those? Those are your, apart from the PIN you enter into your phone, face recognition, your thumbnail, those are actually multi-factor authentication. There are various ways of doing this multi-factor authentication, and in order to secure your application in organization, access managers of various things, they do this. They implement device fingerprinting, they implement IP configurations, IP restrictions, all this stuff, and so on and so forth. So when I'll be discussing this onto our bootcamp class, I'll dig deeper about how this identity and access management is actually being worked upon into the secure application of an organization. Now, with that, I think there is a poll time on it. So Kaushik, over to you.
Thank you, sir. And yes, guys, I've launched a poll right now, and you can, I request you to participate. So it's right in front of your screen. You just need to select an answer. And if there's any other tool apart from the mentioned one that you use, feel free to leave your comment. That's great.
Yeah. I'm seeing some good responses on the poll, and
Yep, yep.
yeah, and it actually signifies what Kaushik, that people are aware of these tools and these technologies, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Which is really good. Which is really good. I mean, we got a good set of audience over here who would take it forward, right? It's really good.
True. I think two of them have said others, and I've guys have chosen others. We'd love to hear what tool you'd prefer, so that even others can learn from you guys. Feel free to leave your answer in the chat. Guys, last 30 seconds. We just have another 20% left up. Okay, I think one of the tools mentioned was Arcos. Okay. Last 10 seconds. We have about 80% of people who kind of voted, which is great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll end the polling right now, and I'll also share the result with you. And I think majority of them have answered CyberArk, followed with Oracle and SailPoint. Bishwajeet, sir, your take on this? Which one would you prefer?
Well, all are industry leaders in identity and access management, but there are different application-specific usages of these tools as well. So people who have voted for CyberArk, I think they are more into privileged access management and all. But just to let you know, guys, that there are certain things which CyberArk is very good at, but not in all, right? So there are other things where Oracle IAM is, excellent in his market, and similar to SailPoint as well. So it's basically, it depends upon the end application. Now we are customer driving industry, right? So based upon our client, whatever the organization needs, we need to choose the correct tool, right? So in our bootcamp, I have actually, segregated this specific functionality where, I'll be discussing that on which particular application, on which particular use case, you should choose which tool, right? Yeah, but I'm really glad to see the overwhelming responses on the tool.
Hey, yep, absolutely, sir, absolutely. I think we did have one or two questions around. So the first one is that what type of technology in cybersecurity is currently used to safeguard user database? Is there an answer to this, sir?
Yeah, so that's, in layman words, is basically the identity management. So when you have user database, you have the database administrative users as well who have given privileges, and the rules which you implement into your database, this will define how secure your user data is.
Thank you, sir. And one more question. Can you determine the usage of data science in cybersecurity?
Okay, so data is the key for anything, right? So when we deal in cybersecurity, also we deals with data only, whether it is a user-related data or it is an application end application-related data, is come again the data. So how you are managing the data, what data can be put into what application, we need to take into consideration that as well. So we might not have a very direct application of all the data science-related theories into identity and access management, but yes, we need to have data science in place in order to segregate the data into our applications as well. A very quick example, like your salary information is a data, your birthday is also a data, but when it comes to in process of your identity management, those are being segregated differently. Now you have to have some rule in place in order to segregate that data, right? So obviously data science is everywhere. You cannot exclude, or you cannot ignore data science when you want to have anything or any learning in today's era. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I think that's about it for now. We can continue with the class, sir. And Rupam, just to answer your question, the recording will be available in a couple of days in the Antworks events page, so you should be able to see it and the PPT. Thanks. Sir, please continue.
Thank you. Sure. So let me share back my screen. Just a sec. I hope it's visible.
Yes, it is.
All right. So now to give you some glimpse, like what is happening in the cybersecurity world nowadays, right? So I'll just start this slide from bottom to top approach. What is that? The Gartner Summit, right? So the way we have such summit, the way we have summit from WHO or our United Nations and all, we have cybersecurity summits as well, which is being attended by the top-notch cybersecurity guys in the world, right? The recent one has supposed to be held on Dubai back in March 2021, but because of this COVID norms and all, they have organized it on virtual way, right? People have joined that. So Gartner is basically a company who does the scoring, or I would say the polling for different cybersecurity technologies, right? So which technology is the market owner now, which is the most useful technology for the end user, and based upon some different characteristics and all, right? So this Gartner is something like that. Is this kind of similar like your, let's say Filmfare, right? Filmfare where people have given option to choose for vote of their particular movie star, and they select it, and therefore based upon that they get some award, and they also get some ceremony kind of stuff, right? The only difference is Filmfare is this cybersecurity Gartner cybersecurity summit is way more real than the Filmfare, right? Anyway, coming back to this Gartner summit. So in the recent Gartner summit, we get to know that, though we have, multiple and equal number of, restriction in place in order to secure our data, but you must be hearing about data theft every now and then, right? Why? Because the people who are sitting to theft your data into your black web, right? You must have heard about some big names in hacking industry, right? Spider, Anonymous, those are very well-known hackers of the world, where US federal government also get, they are very afraid of them as well. Reason being, those are also technical guys like us. They are much more capable techies than us. They have learned our cybersecurity, and then they choose to not heard about Edward Snowden, then I would recommend you after this masterclass, please go and Google who is Edward Snowden, right? You will be definitely amazed with the career track which he has chosen, right? So he could be a topmost hacker of the world, but he has chosen to be truthful. Now, coming back to this hacker world. So though we develop new technologies every day, even they get hacked. They get hacked because they are also improving their own knowledge, right? So there are two examples which I have quoted, which are very recent one. If you see that one malicious Android app is actually been trojan into some of the New Zealand application, and they have theft data of, let's say, millions of users. The other one is, which is a purple fox, that's a name given by the hacker world itself, which actually affected more than 30,000 devices, right? Where those devices are actually being secured. You must have heard about, like, Apple. So Apple be considered being one of the top most secure applications and the devices. But again, we got to know in 2019 that one of the guy from, I think, China, who was an ex-employee of Apple, they have stolen around millions of user data from Apple, right? So when there are hooks, there are tricks as well. Like however security you build, there would be some hole, and hacker will get inside to that only, right? So we need to be very cautious and we need to, improve ourselves on daily basis. How we can improve in our security measure, so that it's not only, it starts with you, right? Putting your credentials correctly, while using ATM, making sure that nobody is watching or pre-watching your PIN. So those are very smaller yet useful steps, right? Do not sharing your OTP, changing your password, in good time of intervals. You might have heard about all these basic things everywhere, right? But these are basic things. Along with that, being a cybersecurity professional, we need to take care of so many other things at the back end. We need to, update the policies. We need to do all this stuff. A very good example here, like people who are already working in any of the company, they might be knowing that every year they have to pass some of the cybersecurity courses. Courses means some quiz or some kind of stuff. Why? Because that is to aware themselves, right? To give them more information that, boss, you have to be careful about your identity. Otherwise, we can't help you, right? You have to help yourself first. So that's the importance of being secure in order to doing or practicing secure thing with your digital identity, right? Similarly, like if you have gold at your home, you secure it very way, right? You either put it into some locker or you put it into bank. The similar way, your digital identity is very, very, very important to your application, and you have to take care of it by taking care of your credentials, right? Now, I think that would give you more importance about why this identity and access management is required, how it is being worked upon, and actually, you know, how it's called as a very basic block of cybersecurity, right? So I'm sure after this 1 hour session, you won't say cybersecurity is equal to hacking. No, there is much more into that, and identity access management being one of the, you know, key holder of it. Obviously, we'll be discussing more deep dive into our boot camp. But before that, we have few more details about career track, pursuing a career track into cybersecurity. But before that, I think Andrew would like to present some of the program announcement over here. So Kaushik, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Just gonna quickly share my screen. Yeah. Hope you guys can see my screen. So I'm just going to make it quick and simple. We are running a current cybersecurity bootcamp, which is lasting for 16 weeks. It has 12 weeks of core classes, 4 weeks of soft skills, CVs, and mentoring sessions. Our class duration is very flexible. We just run 3 classes over the span of the weekend, 1 on Saturday and a couple of them on Sunday, which will contain 2 core classes and 1 professional skill class. In terms of our experts, we don't involve teachers. We rather have industry experts who've been there, done that, who share real life experiences and not only have conceptual learning, but also have dedicated projects. So we do have 40 plus live classes. Bear in mind, it's not recorded sessions. It's all live classes like the one that's happening right now. And there is dedicated project on every specific island that you're going to be discussing or reading. You will be offered pre-reads in the form of and-walk videos. There's going to be 10 plus projects and assessments. And this course is just at 49,999 with 4,444 rupees per month as with zero cost EMI. Now, just to kind of take it further, we're going to cover 10 main topics. It's going to start from introduction of cybersecurity, network security, cyber attacks, web application security, incident management. And you can see every topic is also relevant to the project that you'll be doing. So which will have VirtualBox, Kali OS, Wireshark, Nmap, writing reports, Burp Suite, OWASP, Zap, Jira, Zendesk. And also we'll be teaching other things like digital forensics, governance, risk and compliance, identity and access management, cloud security, and cyber threat intelligence. Now here, identity and access management, as Bishwajeet was saying, you're going to learn more about IDAM, SailPoint, and CyberArk in detail in the class. And this entire 10 islands is something that's going to run over 12 weeks. We're running some sort of a discount. So I'm going to share the link with you. And if you join the link today using Bishwajeet's code, you're going to get a promotional discount of 5,000 rupees. Feel free to go and register on the link because we have academic counselors who can try to help you today. Before we finish off the class, there are a couple of more slides and a poll at the end. So I would request you to just hang out till the end, and we'll also have a Q&A session for 5 to 10 minutes. Over to you, Bishwajeet, sir. Thanks. Bishwajeet, sir, can you hear me? Chandu, am I audible?
Hey Kaushik, can you hear me?
Yep, I can now. Thanks.
Yeah, I just joined back. There was some network glitch.
All right.
So I can move ahead with the list of the slides.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
All right, let me share my screen.
And it's visible, sir.
All right. So now we have so far discussed about identity and access management. We have talked about the importance and how it has been implemented into our daily life, right? Now let's talk about few of the industry experts or, you know, the key tool and technologies which is actually running this identity and access management. So which you see at the right hand, because of the first poll, I got to know that you guys are already aware of. If you have the brand like Oracle Identity and Access Management, SailPoint IIQ solutions, CA is basically CA Identity and Access Management solution, CyberArk PIM and TAM solution, which we call about Privilege Identity Management solution, Privilege Access Management solutions, right? ForgeRock OpenAM and OpenIDM. OpenAM stands for Open Access Management and OpenIDM stands for Open Identity Management. So ForgeRock is a company. Now IBM is giving us TIM and TAM, which we call Tivoli Identity Manager and Tivoli Access Manager. So we have a very healthy competition among all these, right? It's not very easy to choose any of one tool in order to get all the applications or all the functionality being implemented, right? Nowadays, I would say, SailPoint is one of the industry leader nowadays because of its lightweight and easy to implement the solutions, right? Oracle is, on the other hand, is being a king because from, if you go back 5 to 6 years down the line ago, their SailPoint, CyberArk, those were either not in the industry or were very newbies. So that time, Oracle was, one and the only solution for identity and access management for all of the targets applications, right? So if you go to any old organization or any larger organizations, let's say top-notch, because I have experiences working in one of the top-notch banking applications of the world, where we talk about Australia, New Zealand region or US region, or even in Japan region. So they still use Oracle Identity and Access Management, right? Again, CyberArk is kind of setting a monopoly in its own privileged identity and access management thing, right? When you join the bootcamp, we will have more details about what is privileged identity and access management and how, even having into the similar kind of functionality of identity and access management, how these tools are different from each other and what are the best way to choose your tool, right? Because if you're working for a client, right, if you are into consultancy, right, so your client will come up with a problem, right? And with the problem statement, you not only need to give the solution, you need to provide the solution terminology or the domain as well. Like, I mean, you need to choose the tool. Like, okay, if you go with this tool, your solution will be implemented in this way, which will be cost effective, which will be more secure and blah blah stuff, right? So you need to have idea on these different terminologies, right? Coming back to your own career perspective, right? So now everybody, when it comes to any new tool, learning new tool, new technology, they always go for certification, and you might get so many other third-party organizations or I would say this kind of learning platform as well, who will only ask you to do certification. If you have a certification, you will get a job. Well, it's partially true, right? See, I am into cybersecurity profession for close to 7 years now. Yes, I do have certification, but because I did job switch, I know how, and nowadays I am also, I do interviews on behalf of my employer. I am taking interview not only for Indian employees, but for overseas employees as well, right? So I know how, interview works. It's not only they will look forward to your, certification, but also your knowledge, right? So just don't go blindly to, get the certification done. There are high marks for certification as well. So if you just want to learn, you might not be able to pass this certification. But again, with only theoretical knowledge, even if you get a passing marks into certification, that actually not going to help you in long term, right? Whether in terms of client project or in terms of clearing up some interviews, right? So first you learn the technology, first you make yourself comfortable how this works, and then you take up further certification. That's what would be my suggestions to you when you're choosing this career track, right? Talk about a little bit about the costing of the certification. Yes, this certification comes with kind of a good amount of cost. If I talk about Oracle certification, which I have done myself, which will cost you around 200 to 250 USD, which will be around, if you change into Indian rupees, it will be around, I think, 25 to 30,000 plus minus, right? Or they have identity management certification, access management certification for OAAM, OIAM. Do you have certification for your middleware layer and all, right? In SailPoint, you have certifications, say, you have beginner program for Identity IQ and Identity Now. Now is the cloud portion of SailPoint, right? If you go for engineer level, I think it's free of cost. You just need to pass the certification. But if you have to have more weightage, you have to go for some sentry level or some analyst level or the architect level. So I think architect level will cost you around 500 USD, which will be around, I think, 50,000+ in India rupees. Analyst level will be 300 USD, something like that. CyberArk, again, if you go for beginner level, it will cost you around 200 USD. Like those are Sentry or beginner or those stuff. If you're going for top level, like Guardian, right? CyberArk Guardian, it's very, very costly. It will be around 3,200 USD, which will be more than lakhs over here, right? But the good point is, if you are working for an organization and if you are good into your technology, right? So most of the time, organization will pay for you, right? All the certification which I have done, whether we talk about Microsoft, Oracle, SailPoint, I have passed the certification and my employer has offered the entire amount to me. That happens to with most of the employers, right? Because they want to have a good professional with their organizations as well, right? So if you pass the certification, being into an employer, there are some certain rules and regulations would be there. You can just go through it, and I think your employer will sponsor the entire amount for you, right? You don't have to worry about that. But again, yeah, you have to pass the certification exam. If you fail it, I think then it has to go from your pocket. So that's why first learn the technology and then you go for the certification. Yes, certification is important. It's very good to have certification when you are experienced professional, but that is not only the one and only criteria to get a good job into cybersecurity, right? It's always, at the end of the day, it matters how experienced you are in your own domain by working into real-time projects, right? It's again your expertise, not your certifications. All right, moving towards the next, and I think it's going to be the last slide about talking about your career. So now, as we came to a conclusion, like yes, it's a very important thing in terms of technology. Then how it is going to help or benefit you as a IT millennial, right? So if you are in IT domain, how it is going to help you? So yes, if you ask anybody who are into cybersecurity, including me, I would say yes. It's a very, very, very hot cake in the market now. I don't defame any other technology because they are also very equally important over here. But again, there are ups and downs over there. In cybersecurity, it's always up. So far, I have seen. Reason being, securing the online data cannot be neglected, right? It cannot be second priority. It has to be the first and foremost priority for any organization. Hence, cybersecurity, along with this identity access management track, is a very basic need for any application. Even in the future, if you become an entrepreneur, if you want to start your own company, the first thing you will look forward to is how to secure your user data, right? So you are going to get some more costly cloud storage or costly hard disk or something like that just to secure your data, right? So that means, so if you are a cybersecurity professional, you really don't have to worry about opportunities into the market. If you are having good knowledge into your domain, you would be getting calls from interviewer. You will be having good plenty of opportunities, whether inside the organization or outside the organizations, right? So I would recommend, if you are interested or if you're already into this, really good, get yourself very good in your boots of identity and access management, right? Learn as much as you can, right? Because your learning is your own wealth, right? The more you learn, you will be more secure into the domain. You don't have to worry about your job security. You don't have to worry about higher package and all, right? Company will take care of it because they know who are the working person and who are non-working assets, right? So they will take care of your working assets. And because I am into this domain for quite a long time, I have worked upon 2 major MNCs into IT world, and also I back some offer some good other MNCs as well. So I know that if you are good into your technology, you don't have to worry about the logistic part. So with this, I would like to wish all of you all the best, right? Welcome to the cybersecurity. If you're new, learn as much as possible and get yourself cybersecurity professional tag, right? One last thing about when we talk about logistics. So how companies are spending. So it's a very good graph which is being quoted over here. If you read through it, that the big companies are spending millions, literally millions, for their cybersecurity budget, right? Because this is something is really important. Suppose you are I'm talking about, let's say there's you heard about that, Indian Railways application got hacked by a hacker. How defaming it is, how when you heard this, what the first thing which you think about yourself, that okay, our government is not working properly, or they are not secure, our own Aadhaar data is not secure, something like that, right? It's very legitimate as well, like because if somebody can get into the government official website and take data from it, then how you can guarantee your own security of digital data, right? So when we talk about these big MNCs, IT MNCs, right, so they have penalties for it. If they misspelled, or if they are not able to protect the client data, there will be $1 billion of penalty which they have to pay to the client, and there is no, and along to that they will have defamation, they might have contract blockage and blah blah stuff. So huge repercussions of it, right? So they usually spend a huge amount of money for cybersecurity budget, right? And when we talk about cybersecurity budget, it's basically their employees, right? So they need to have more pool, more user resources. They try to keep their resources by giving the salary they are looking forward to, in order to reduce the people leaving companies, right? The attrition rate and all, right? Being an Infosys, I work for Infosys, and at the inside I know how much Infosys is paying for their cybersecurity budget, which is, I would say, kind of 1/3 of the complete budget. So you talk about Infosys is $1 billion company, and their monthly, or I would say quarterly revenue also goes for millions of dollars, right? And they are paying 1/3 of that $1 million for cybersecurity unit only, right? So this will give you a glimpse, right? How important, and not only important, how secure your job if you are into this field, right? So if you have made your mind that you want to be a cybersecurity professional, come into over here. It's not that you have to be on identity and access management SME. You can choose any of the cybersecurity domain which I have spoken about, or we have 10 other different islands as well, right? But whatever area you choose, make sure that you know something better than other. You make yourself very crisp and sharp into the technology, so that you can do something and people reach out to you for specific solutions, right? So with that note, I think that's enough. It's over to you, Kaushik. You can take forward.
All right, guys. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was a wonderful session. We're just having our last poll for the day. So feel free to kind of answer this. So out of the 4 options, you need to identify which is a wrong statement. And meanwhile, you guys are polling. Sir, we do have a couple of questions. One from Kushal saying, how about job opportunities in identity and access management in comparison to the other security domains?
Okay, so as I was mentioning at the very beginning, that this is a base, right? So if, for example, if you have a smaller organization, I'll give you an example here. If you have a smaller organization, you might not need, some data theft analysis level stuff, right? But you need identity and access management because you have that user identity in place, right? So all other paradigm which we have in cybersecurity are equally important, but all of them might not be applicable for all the applications, but identity and access management is something which is applicable to all the applications. Having said that, that means your opportunities will be more if you are into identity and access management. I think that will answer the question.
Great. And so we have a question from Ankita. What are the prerequisites to have a flourishing career in the identity and access management domain?
So does she want to know like how she want to start?
Yeah, so what she needs to have in order for her to have a long-lasting career in the IAM domain.
All right. So the mantra which I use for myself, and I have seen my seniors and industry experts use the same, is basically first you go deep into one well and then fan out a little bit, right? I'll give an example. If people who are from computer science, they know that in their college days, they used to learn different languages, right? So what they used to do, they learn one language, whether it is C or Java, anything, very well. And once they know one language very well, learning other language would be easy. Similarly, for cybersecurity, I would say take any of the domain, this is SailPoint or Oracle, get more deeper into it. Learn that as much as you can, maybe 70-75% of the technology, right? And then you fan out as well. Do not restrict yourself learning into one domain only, because then you will restrict your opportunities as well. So first learn one thing very much so that you can call as an expertise over there. And then you start to have limited knowledge into other domains as well, so that you can have a plethora of different experience of a same domain of different tool. I think that would be the approach you should be taking towards your cybersecurity journey.
Very cool. I think, sir, the poll has actually evenly balanced between the first and the last answer, and I think the last is the correct one, right?
Let me just read it out, the poll. I haven't seen that. Let me just read. Okay, I need to, I think, widen my screen to read the entire thing. Okay, yeah, the last one is the correct answer. Yep.
All right, great. And so we have one question. There's a professional, Sanal. So Sanal has a networking experience of 15 years, and he has cleared a CISSP, but then he wants to get experience in terms of how would he want to get experience without actually having a job in InfoSec based on a certification. Is that possible?
All right. So, I'm really happy and glad to hear that the people who are very and huge, rich experience in cybersecurity domain itself are listening to me. Very warm welcome to you. The main thing is, after CISSP, so CISSP is a certification where people actually get a kind of a managerial stuff, and they get certified saying that, yes, you know the do's and don'ts of cybersecurity, like how to protect the data, what is do's with your credentials and not, right? So that is kind of a entry that, yes, you are a cybersecurity professional for long. Now, having said that, if you are still want to pursue identity and access management, your career into that, you want to move your career into this, please start learning with, I would say, SailPoint. Yes, it is possible. There is nothing impossible here. And as you already into the same domain for long, you learning identity and access management would be very much easier for you compared to other who are very new to the domain. Reason being, because you might just need to learn the technology, how it works, the backend stuff, but you are already knowing that how exactly it is supposed to be, right? What is your do's, what is your don't, how your data supposed to be managed, how your data supposed to be secure. If something is wrong, you might not be able to fix right away, but you know this is wrong. So that is the advantage you have with your CISSP and all this network security experience, right? So yes, you can go ahead, you keep your experience along with you. You don't have to just switch right away. You keep with that and also start learning identity and access management as well, which will add another feather in your cybersecurity journey.
Great, sir. I think that was really helpful. And just the last question for the day from Kumar is, he's currently working in IAM, and how does he proceed with the next level? So how does he go from where he is right now? I think if in terms of progressions, how or what would you do to keep yourself or learn to progress further?
Okay. So, well, in that scenario, I don't know what kind of job role he's having right now. So if he's into some support profile where he takes care of the tool or the data in IAM, I would recommend that he, try to start learning the same tool in some development perspective. Like if something new comes into it, how he will develop, right? How he will, so it's not only managing the stuff from the front end, learn the back end as well, right? So which will obviously help him to progress into that domain. If he is facing difficulties into that particular IAM domain, because he has knowledge of IAM, he can take it any other tool, right, and start learning from scratch, right, and try to get insight to it. Because there is a slight difference between a support profile and a developer profile, because support profile where you actually supporting the application from the front end, developer profile where they actually develop or tweak from the backend infrastructure. So if you know the backend, learning, knowing the front end will be very much easier. It's not equally same for vice versa. So if you know the front end, you need to work upon yourself to know the back end, right? So my two suggestion would be for him that if he is into the first hand, then go for the second hand, go to the back end and learn more into the technology. And if he is not very much comfortable knowing the back end of his own IAM, switch into some other IAM with the same IAM knowledge and just apply to learn more into this. I think that would be the best approach for progress.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. I think we've gone above and beyond our time. Thank you all participants who've come in today for the masterclass. Thank you so much, Bishwajeet, sir. It was wonderful with the session, and we look forward to much more masterclasses. Thank you so much again. You take care of yourself, and guys, stay safe. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Happy weekend. Yep.